Happy New Year! That's right, it's 2023. We're glad you're with us here on the Card Subject to Change podcast. And everybody might think the biggest wrestling event is 3 months away at WrestleMania, but I'm here to tell you there's a really big one coming up here in just a couple days. That's WrestleKingdon 17 in Japan. And as I bring on my co-host here, the Wizard CZ. Wizard, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Nick. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm talking about wrestling. I'm upright. It's good. And I know we talked about doing this episode early 2023, and I brought up, let's do something with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Let's talk about WrestleKingdom. And you and I are kind of like, well, we really don't know a lot about that. I'm like, well, I've got a friend who knows more than I do. And I've always known if you get lost, ask for directions. If there's somebody that knows something more about something than you, ask them. So joining us now, our first guest of 2023 here on the Card Subject to Change is a friend of mine, Ryan Howard. You can find him at Twitter at the Ryan Howard. And we're bringing on Ryan because he knows more about New Japan Pro Wrestling probably than both of us, CZ. And I feel that he can get us through this. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing great. I can't complain, CZ.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling good. We're here talking about wrestling, and I'm excited. Like you said, Nick, it's a subject we don't know a lot about. So I'm excited to learn, put on the learning hat today, hear about everything New Japan Pro Wrestling and WrestleKingdon 17.
I am too, and I'm gonna start with the questioning here, Ryan. I'm gonna throw you right into the pit here. With WrestleMania season, everybody knows it kicks off Royal Rumble, or now we're in WrestleMania season. How does that start in New Japan with WrestleKingdom? When does their build to WrestleKingdom start?
Well, the G1 really, it's like the best tournament of the year, and the winner of it gets a briefcase and picks their shot, choose their shot, and it usually lines up right around WrestleKingdom because usually sometimes they put the briefcase on the line in matches, but now it's Okada. Okada's on another level, man. He's been for the last 10 years probably, and now we got Jay White as the world champion, and Okada called his shot, I guess you could say, and he wants another shot at Jay White because history has proven Jay White has had Okada's number in the past, but not at WrestleMania.
For listeners that are not familiar with New Japan, this is not the first time that Jay White and Okada have matched up. Doesn't Jay White have like a 3-1 advantage or a 4-1 advantage in their matchups, Ryan?
Yeah, he's beat Okada in the G1 in 2018, and he even beat him at WrestleKingdom 13, so 4 years ago when Jay White was getting going. The only time Okada's won is at the Madison Square Garden show, and that's when he won the IWGP title from Jay. But Jay White's won in the G1 2020, and he won at Dominion this year when he beat Okada for the title. So this is a rematch from Dominion.
Okada has a lot to prove. But I feel that the pressure is on Jay White here because Jay White doesn't have that WrestleKingdom win over Okada, correct?
Yeah, he's never won a main event at WrestleKingdom. Like Okada is 10-7, I think, if my math is right, in WrestleKingdom, and Jay White is 2-3, but he's 0-3 in title matches, so that's kind of advantage Okada.
Wow, that's the main event on the show, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. I am, but the match that I kind of have starred, and it's because U.S. fans are a little more familiar with both of these guys because they've seen them on mainstream television here recently, and it's the matchup for the IWGP U.S. Championship between the current champion Will Ospreay and challenger Kenny Omega. There's a lot of interesting dynamics going into this match.
Tell you what, man, it's Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay has only wrestled once, I believe, in PWG. I think 2015, 2016 maybe. And to show you Will Ospreay is just on another level, man, because to show where he came from at the first meeting compared to now, it's like it's anybody's game because Kenny brought a lot of eyes to the New Japan product, but Will Ospreay has been there through the pandemic, putting on 5-star matches. So it'll be very interesting to see which way they go,
It will be
definitely the match that I would be gravitating towards because I know both of them from AEW earlier this year. I don't know as much about Will Ospreay as I do Kenny Omega, but my ear's always to the ground. I've heard great things about his wrestling, even though I haven't seen many of his matches.
Will Ospreay. Oh, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
No, like Will Ospreay, man. Like I first found out about him and when he started in coming over to PWG shows, and then I was kind of just like hooked. And when he joined New Japan as a lightweight or junior, and like then he slowly got into the main event picture with the heavyweights. It's kind of like now he's holding his own, and now he's against the Okadas and the Shingos, and so I mean, I would love to see him retain here, but if they have Kenny around for longer, I would assume maybe have Kenny win the title.
I can see it both ways, Ryan. Kenny was the inaugural IWGP US champion. It only seems fitting that he comes back and fights the current title holder, who is Will Ospreay. I know there was some legit heat between the two gentlemen over a T-shirt this past summer or fall, and it just seems like the matchup everybody's been wanting to see. And I don't know if Omega thinks that he sees a little bit of Ospreay in him, that he was Ospreay once upon a time, but yeah, this is the one I'm not the biggest fan of either one of these guys, but just as a wrestling fan, that this is the match that I'm looking forward to the most, obviously, besides White and Okada.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a part of me almost thinks if Don Callis comes over with Kenny, could he possibly turn on him? And maybe hitch his wagon to the younger horse, maybe, you know what I'm saying? So, but I don't know if they want to do that right now, but I would love to see maybe.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just fantasy booking there.
Hey, and that's what's great about the Card Subject Change podcast. Chris, don't we, CZ, we fantasy book the crap all the time out of here, right?
Oh, absolutely. Fantasy book as much as you want, because we both love to hear it for sure.
I mean, Ryan, you bring up that point. If Callis turned on Omega, that indeed would, really give Ospreay some weight as a major heel, and then it maybe give Omega, sympathy to the U.S. fans. They give him sympathy, and that's how you get Omega and the Bucks back as full-fledged faces, because they're not full-fledged faces right now.
No. And part of me does, like, if they do the turn, if like for some reason Callis does the turn, does AEW want him turning on Kenny in Japan, or would they rather save that for AEW show?
That's right. You're right, because I mean, I know there were talks of doing another Forbidden Door later this year, maybe a tie into that in the future. But yeah, you raise a good point there.
They certainly could.
About,
I mean,
Ryan, Oh, go ahead. No, I didn't want to interrupt the thought. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Repeat yourself. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt interrupt what you were saying. I want you to finish what you were saying.
You cut out. Sorry, man.
I think he was saying he wanted you to finish your thought. He wanted you to finish your thought.
Yes, thank you, Nick.
Yeah, what I was just saying was a part of me wants Omega to win the title. A part of me wants Okada to win the title and then have them have a face-off. But, I mean, I don't know if you would have the two champions, because I just want all roads to go back to Okada and Omega since the two have not touched in years,
Yep.
So whatever gets us to that point, preferably, I mean, AEW would want that, you would assume. But, I mean, that's what made Kenny Omega and Okada, I mean, they're classics. They're 3 or 4 matches. They're, I think, 3, yeah.
Maybe we get that at Forbidden Door, right? Maybe the seeds are planted for that. I'm down for that. I guess you see Omega winning this match, or what was your pick on this match?
Oh man, this is probably the toughest one, because I mean, I'm gonna pick Okada to win the title.
Okay, you have Okada winning. I believe that's going to happen too. I believe that too.
Yeah, and so I mean, if you want, I know WrestleKingdom is all about title changes, a lot of them, but I mean, Will Ospreay's, man, he's been the workhorse of New Japan during this whole pandemic, but then I think if Omega's going to be in New Japan for longer than one show, he needs to win.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with Kenny Omega.
I like that reasoning. And when you say at Wrestle Kingdom, it's historically a lot of title changes. I'll agree with you, because I think there's more title changes to come here later.
Oh, in my predictions that I have written down, I think almost all the titles I have almost changing hands. So,
yeah, I mean, I can see maybe not the women's, since
yes, I agree. Yep,
she's the inaugural Kairi Sane, as the U.S. fans know her. That IWGP women's title, I can see her holding. They just crowned her, unless they're going to start like a long-term feud with her and Nakano. I cannot see Nakano winning that match.
No, and I think this has a lot more to do than with the post-match with whatever Sasha Banks.
Correct.
And apparently now Naomi is supposed to be with her, so potentially do something with them post-match. You would assume Kairi's the more well-known name in America. Correct. And that title is supposed to be defended on all the different kinds of New Japan shows, so in America as well. So nothing against Tam Nakano, but I mean, Kairi's the one to go with, you know?
Right. I thought that, man, I just can't see them taking it off her once they gave it to her, but
yeah,
I know that she's kind of the name, and you got to put your title on a known person, in my opinion, like they are with her for your first champion, and you're not going to have it taken off her that quick. I totally agree. Ryan, when you look at this card, what is the next match that really sticks out to you? What are you looking forward to next? We just talked about the two, Jay White and Okada, Ospreay and Omega. We just briefly went through the IWGP women's title match. Is there a match that what's the next match that sticks out to you on the card?
I mean, from an action standpoint, I'm going the 4-way junior heavyweight.
And that match, if you're not familiar with it, help me with these names, but I got the card here for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight. We have the champion, Taiji Ishimori, versus El Desperado, versus Hiromu Takahashi, and Master Wato.
Yeah.
All right.
And everyone's had their Wrestle Kingdom moment on those 4 guys, except for Wato, which is why that's who I'm picking as the spoiler, the upset, I guess.
Okay.
Because if you look in the history, Ishimori won the junior title at Wrestle Kingdom 13 against Kushida. Hiromu's Takahashi has won the junior title in 14 and 15 Wrestle Kingdoms. And Desperado defended the title last year against Hiromu. So everyone except Wato has had their time to shine, if you know what I mean? So
that's good. That's good reasoning. And you said they've all had their quote unquote Wrestle Kingdom moments. We're going to put the Wrestle Kingdom talk on pause here. We are going to take a quick break, acknowledge our podcast brethren, and then we're going to come back here. We're going to pick up Wrestle Kingdom talk, but we're going to pause it and we're going to go back in the past. Stick with us. We'll be right back here on the Card Subject to Change podcast.
Make sure you tune into For Frequency's Sake on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch each Sunday during the football season from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. The boys from For Fantasy's Sake will be bringing the fire fantasy football takes, updating you on the week's rankings and injuries, and getting you ready for your fantasy football matchups each and every week. The show is interactive, so be sure to send your questions. You can find them at For Frequency's Sake on Facebook, at FFSQC on Twitter, or you can send them an email at forfantasysakeqc@gmail.com.
We are talking wrestling royalty, no pun intended there. Welcome back to the Card Subject to Change. Along with the Wizard CZ, I am the Honorable One, Nick Bull. We have Ryan Howard on talking New Japan Pro Wrestling WrestleKingdon 17. We're previewing it. The event's just a couple days away. We're putting a pause button on the current card here, Ryan, and just want to kind of talk about past WrestleKingdoms you've watched. A handful of matches that stick out. What's your, favorite WrestleKingdom moment? We get the WrestleMania moment. Maybe talk about the history of the event and some of the things that stick out to you.
Well, during the pandemic is when I started doing a deep dive into the history of it, because
sure.
What else are you going to do? So I jumped in and New Japan World I cannot recommend that enough. If you want to just get caught up on the history of New Japan and everything, they have a lot of shows. They have a lot of old matches, and I decided to watch all the main events from all the Tokyo Domes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that started back in '92. And so after every January 4th since then has been not a Wrestle Kingdom, because Wrestle Kingdom became Wrestle Kingdom, I guess you could say, in 2007. But before that, there was all these different types of shows, and there's some really good gems of matches if you want to see just guys like Riki Choshu and Antonio Inoki had a couple decent ones, but Shinya Hashimoto, Keiji Muto, who's about to retire this year. If you want to get, if you like WCW, you got Scott Norton main evented a January 4th Tokyo Dome show. My favorite is, to go back to it, is Okada versus Omega 2017.
What number encounter was that for them?
That was their first one. But
okay.
I think I liked their 2 out of 3 Falls match at Dominion even more. But this is the one. This is what set the stage for their feud. This was the first one. So okay. You look at that. I cannot recommend watching that series of matches enough.
You brought up a good name, a strong name, and I know the Wizard CZ. And you guys and you, Ryan, may be having some audio issues. So he did not ghost you, but he brings up a good point. And you mentioned the name; it was perfect. Antonio Inoki. With the passing of Antonio Inoki, this event kind of pretty much there's a match in his honor, but you got to think there's going to be a big tribute and kind of centered around the show. Give me your thoughts on Antonio Inoki passing, and then what you think Wrestle Kingdom has planned besides the match on the card.
For me, it's a great tribute match that they have. I think it's the Memorial. It's a 6-man, which is Tatsumi Fujinami, Minoru Suzuki, and Tiger Mask versus Yuji Nagata, Satoshi Kojima, and Togi Makabe. And I think I'm just going to jump for that prediction. I'm going to choose Fujinami's team, because Fujinami teamed with Inoki hundreds of times. So one would assume that would be a great tribute for him. Nagata, Kojima, and Makabe get nothing out of winning this match. Fujinami winning a tribute match for Inoki in the Tokyo Dome would be more worthy, I guess you could say,
Okay.
But if you were talking about Antonio Inoki, I know he's a legend, but if you want just bad wrestling, no offense to him, there is a tournament at the January 4th, I believe, 95. There was a one-night tournament, and it was a mixed martial arts tournament, and it was Antonio Inoki, Gerard Gordeau, if you remember him from the early UFC days.
I do.
Tony Palmore, who was a boxer, and then Sting. And so
Sting? How
Yeah.
did Sting get wrangled into this?
Sting versus Tony Palmore is terrible. Inoki versus Gordeau is terrible. And spoiler alert, it's Antonio Inoki versus Sting in the finals. And I love Sting. Inoki's great. You won't find a worse match. So it's one of those things you have to watch to believe how badly it is.
Is that match? I mean, I know the Wizard and I here on Card Subject to Change, we love crappy wrestling. And when fans bring it up, when we have guests on the shows that talk about it, how is this? Where can this be found? Is this on YouTube?
It could be on YouTube. I know I watched it on New Japan World, but
Okay.
it is like Inoki had this like an itch to have like, I guess I would say staged mixed martial arts fights, but they're really rough, man. It's so bad. I can't even say it's so bad it's good, because it's just flat out terrible.
Well, you talk about this, not to break away from New Japan and Antonio Inoki. You talk about the fights. I don't know if you've read the Ken Shamrock biography, but with Ken Shamrock and Minoru Suzuki kind of being the heads of Pancrase, was it kind of along the lines of that, where they were maybe trying to beat Pancrase and it wasn't nearly as good?
I think so, because it would line up around that time period, because like 95 is when this tournament happened. And man, it's just, oh God, I can't tell you. I can't explain to you how badly it is.
Oh, I've got this start on my notes right here. I love going back and watching bad stuff. I mean, historically, one of my favorite shows to watch, whether I'm having a bad day or a good day, and it's a good time burner, is Super Clash 3. That thing is such a train wreck. It is so bad. Stagger Lee Marshall is trying to steer the sinking ship. I love that show. So I kind of get what you mean when you're talking about it's so bad, it's crap, it has to be watched.
Inoki redeemed himself the next year, because I think he fought Vader. Like, Vader came over from WCW. It's between when Vader debuted in WWF. And if you look in the history, Vader's first or one of his first matches was he squashed Antonio Inoki in his debut in New Japan. So like nobody ever did that. That's like Hulk Hogan getting squashed in the 90s, or Cena getting, you know what I'm saying? So Vader winning that in the late 80s made him a monster. So you cut to 96, Inoki versus Vader. That was a cool history they had, so.
Sure. No, I like how you break down, you broke down, the history, what your favorite moments are so far. Let's go back to the card. A few more matches to discuss here. I guess a question: how will this run? How does a Wrestle Kingdom show run to like a WrestleMania or to a Tony Khan AEW show?
Well, with the way the WrestleMania's turned now with multiple days, I'm prefer the multiple days in that regard for WrestleMania, because when it was 8 hours, it was just exhausting, or 7 or 8 hours. You can't do it.
Totally agree. I totally agree with you. I totally agree.
So with Wrestle Kingdom, I know it's been broken up into 2 nights on different occasions, and it was 3 nights, I believe, last year. And I mean, the pandemic really hurt this, because you didn't have very many fans. You couldn't cheer. You still can't cheer all that often, but I like a condensed 1-night card for Wrestle Kingdom, at least.
Yeah, I know there's a date later in the month. I don't have it right offhand, but there's another night of Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's booked off that. Probably more matches will come off the actions that transpire here. Yeah. But will this be like a 4-hour show, 5-hour show?
With the amount of matches, yeah, we're probably looking at 5 hours, because I remember there's been times where I stay up all night and watch it, and I'm done at like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and it starts maybe around 2.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you're counting the pre-show, you're probably looking at maybe 5.5 hours.
Okay. January 21st is the other night of Wrestle Kingdom. And just want to say here real quick, you're tuning in live. Thank you. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Card Subject Change, wherever you can find your podcasting. Yeah, I agree with you. If we could have WrestleMania be 4 hours, I'm a fan of it being one day. But you're right with these 2-night things. It's kind of it's a hassle. Yes, it's a moneymaker, but you get condensed stuff, and it's not nearly a marathon. And I think you're getting better shows as well.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of filler when you try to spread things out for 2 days. But I mean, it's easily more watchable for 2 days. But I mean, storyline wise for WrestleMania, I know for WrestleMania's sake, I like that one night.
Yes, so. I do too. We're talking about WrestleMania here, and why not? There's a WWE tie-in, a couple WWE tie-ins on this WrestleKingdon card. Before we talk about the wrestlers on the card, well, I guess we can talk about, is this kind of historic for as many different promotions are involved with this WrestleKingdon, or is this kind of par for the course where, multiple promotions work together in the past to have action on this show?
I know there's been multiple promotions work together in the past, but I don't know, like, nowadays it's like AEW has a couple guys with FTR, Kenny Omega, but then WWE now has Carl Anderson on the card.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where when's the last time we've seen a AEW WWE tie-in together? I mean, on a third separate promotion. I mean, I don't think that's happened really before, right?
No, it doesn't happen. So it's kind of a unique thing. And you mentioned the tie-in with Carl Anderson. I know Luke Gallows is advertised to be in his corner. Yeah. He's going to defend his never openweight championship against Tama Tonga. I know enough history about this. These two were, Anderson and Tonga were two of the original 4 members of the Bullet Club, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I just wish, yes, you are. But I just wish I cared more about this match. You know what I mean? I just, like you said, like, they're 2 of the OG Bullet Club members. I just wish I cared more, but it's like, since Anderson signed back with WWE, I mean, good for him getting paid, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Right.
But I just wish they could have built a story. Could you imagine like multiple months build instead of Carl Anderson just saying, oh, well,
I know,
I'll hold on to this title. I mean, his hands are tied. I mean, there's nothing he can do if he works for another company, but
no, you're right. And if you're not familiar with Carl Anderson and him going and defending this belt over in Japan, he was supposed to have done this more than likely, probably dropped the belt back in November, but it was the same day as Crown Jewel, to which Carl Anderson knows where his bread is buttered, and you're not gonna piss off the number 1 promotion in the world at that time. So I'm glad they're able to work it out. I'm glad that we're going to have this match, but you're right. A multiple month build with these two guys who helped start the Bullet Club, and then they're going to war against each other. I agree. It would have been a lot better.
And I think Anderson will lose. I think he'll drop the title to Tonga. I mean,
I do too.
Ever since Tonga's broke off from Bullet Club, he's been on his own, and it's just, he's ready for a big push. I mean, he had a good run. He made it to the finals of the G1 this year.
Yes.
So,
yes, he did.
I mean, he's ready to break out. I mean, I know the never openweight title isn't the top title or anything, but I mean, you get him going, Anderson can put him over. I think the match itself will be very good, but I just wished I was more invested in it. It comes across as just another match on the show.
It does. It really does. I mean, you're absolutely right. It should have more of a build to it, but it didn't get it. But there's another WWE tie-in here. I mean, I guess, Ring of Honor tie-in too. You have Zack Sabre Jr., who was part of the Cruiserweight Classic a few years back. He has taken on Ren Narita, and this is for the inaugural. This is the finals for the inaugural New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Championship. Thoughts on New Japan introducing a new belt and this match that's on the card?
They don't need another belt. I mean, nobody needs. That's the last thing wrestling needs is more belts. But
right.
If they've announced that this title is going to be for the younger wrestlers, and it's going to be defended, like I would say it's similar to like the women's title. It's going to be defended on shows across the globe, really. So I mean, if you're looking for a younger wrestler, Ren Narita's. I mean, once they announced this tournament, I just assumed he would be in the finals and win it. And Sabre's like a good final boss, if you know. So,
sure,
I mean,
sure. I know what you mean. Yep.
But I wouldn't complain if Sabre won. But he's a great guy for Narita to beat. Because if you look at the tournament, Narita's beat Tomohiro Ishii, Sonata, and Toru Yano. And I mean, those are established names in New Japan for him to get to this point. So I'm assuming Narita, I would say an upset, but I mean, Saber's been so to the top of the card that it could be an upset.
Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but did Ren Narita appear on the Ric Flair last match card? I want to say that name. I think I'll have to look up after the show and get back to you on social media. But that name, I believe he was on a match on the Ric Flair. If not, the pre-show was on the card. I remember that name being a part of it. But interesting enough, Zack Sabre and Ren Narita, we're going to use that as a stopping point right now. We're going to take a quick break here on Card Subject Change podcast. After the break, we're going to finish up the rest of the FTR card, make some last-second predictions, and a little bit more. We'll see you on the other side here.
In addition to bringing fire on the mic, the team at 4FrequencySake is still bringing it online as well. Check out 4FantasySakeQC.com this season for college DFS, Survivor League, and betting advice each and every week of this football season. Again, that is 4FantasySakeQC.com for college DFS, Survivor League, and betting advice each week during the football season.
Thanks for sticking with us here, Card Subject to Change podcast. Love that you're tuning in and watching along. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe, write a review. Tell us you like us, tell us you hate us. Just let us know how you feel, right? I'm going to pick back up. I'm gonna flex my fandom and my markism here. Let's talk about the FTR versus is it Bishamon tag team title match?
Yeah, I know FTR's your boys, but I think they're going to lose again.
Hey, I do too. And we'll talk about this match first, but then let's talk about them losing the belts and get down that rabbit hole and where it's going to take them.
Okay, so Bishamon is Haruki Goto and Yoshihashi, and they won the World Tag League tournament to get this shot. They won it last year as well. And they're going to be facing FTR, obviously, who had every tag belt you can imagine, and they've been losing every tag belt you can imagine the last few weeks, which is unfortunate. But I'm thinking if they want time off in 2023, like we've heard, it just makes. I mean, they've already dropped the AAA titles last week.
Yep.
They dropped the ROH titles to the Briscoes in that amazing dog collar match.
Unbelievable match. Unbelievable match.
Amazing. And then they lost to the Acclaimed, and they did a job to the Ass Boys on last week's Dynamite. So,
right.
or 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry. It makes sense. I mean, if they're on their way to take time off, or they just need a breather, I guess, because they've just been run ragged these last 6 months. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world for Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi to win it, you know?
It does. I think this FTR is kind of like a promise or maybe a fulfillment of a conversation they had with Tony Khan where they always wanted to appear and wrestle on a Wrestle Kingdom show. So yeah, I think they're dropping the belts here, and that's fine. But the next question is, I know their contracts are coming up here soon, Ryan, and I don't know with a wrestling-minded guy now in charge making the calls in WWE if that lures them back. Or if they're going to stick around on AEW. It remains to be seen, but them losing these belts leads me to believe they're either taking a look over with WWE, or they're going to get lined up in a major push here with, like a three-way with the Ass Boys and the Acclaimed.
With my thing is, I really hope they don't go back to WWE. I mean, not to say that their matches wouldn't be good, but for a team who wants to take time off, going back to WWE, you're going to be on the road more. So
I agree.
You're going to have more matches.
I agree.
So, but what would you have? Just multiple matches against New Day and the Usos, Imperium. Those would be good matches, but there's only so many times you could do them.
I agree. I agree with you. I hope they stick around because, 2022 was a great year of wrestling. And they were allotted to do a lot of stuff, on the indies, showing up here, showing up there. So I hope they stay. I just hope they're booked a little bit better.
I mean, you mentioned about fantasy booking, and My fantasy booking is match 7 of this ladder match coming up in 2 weeks on Dynamite with the Elite versus Death Triangle.
Yes.
The Elite win the titles, and they're all holding the titles on 3 separate ladders, and the lights go out, and they come back on. And I wish he was healthy enough, but if CM Punk and FTR were facing off with them, all 3 standing on the ladder against them, that would be my fantasy booking.
What happens if you hear Cult of Personality on the after match 7?
I mean, you're at the LA Forum; they're going to go crazy. But I don't know if he's like physically cleared to even do stuff like that. But I just wish they would be able to figure stuff out.
Just walk out on the entrance ramp and have that. Oh my goodness, you'd have that moment. The world would be buzzing. You're absolutely right.
That part's fantasy booking, but I could see maybe like that same scenario happening, but with like House of Black showing up on the ladders.
Sure.
And you're off to the races with your next feud there. But that's all dependent on if FTR sticks around, or if I don't even know if CM Punk will stick around, or is going to ever be back. But that's a whole nother issue, you know.
That would be a cool thing. That would be a cool thing to say. I was going to say, if FTR does stick around, you know, have them work with the Ass Boys, have them work with the Acclaimed. It's only going to make those young guys better, and adds, it keeps depth to their tag team division. That's what you can say about WWE. They have no depth in that tag division. So,
no.
Closing here on Wrestle Kingdom, you know, we're talking about what's, you know, I guess it'd be Wednesday morning. Will it be Wednesday morning our time?
Yeah, I think probably early morning. So I'll be awake.
You'll be awake. I'm sure most of the people will be awake. What's going to be trending? Your prediction. Give me the headline here. I know they do this on the Dan Patrick Show, or they used to do it on Dan Le Batard. Give me the headline for the morning after Wrestle Kingdom.
Man. Oh, man. I mean, something needs to happen with like the 2 co-main events. Like Will Ospreay, if Omega win, man, I would go back to that Okada Omega face-off that I just hope would happen. You know, I don't know if there's going to be any surprises of people showing up that's not advertised outside of you know, like your Sasha Banks for the Kyrie match. But I mean, man, I don't know. Maybe they do. We didn't talk about this, but it's Keiji Muto, the Great Muta's last New Japan match.
Yes, let's talk about it, because we don't have a format here. It is his last match. Looks like it is a 6-man tag. It's Keiji Muto, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Chada Umino versus, I can't say, the Los Ingobernables Japan. Is that how you say it?
Los Ingobernables de Japón.
Ingobernables. There you go. Okay, thank you. Naito, Sonata, and Bushi. So, interesting match.
And I think, if you, I watched the Nakamura Great Muta match from yesterday.
Okay, I want you. Tell me what you thought about it, because I watched it as well.
A very interesting finish. I didn't see that finish coming, where Nakamura literally sucked the poison out of the mouth of Muta and misted him.
Yeah.
I thought it was. Look, he's not going to do a lot of bumps. He doesn't have to anymore, and his career is winding down. And I think Nakamura sold his ass off for him, and it was a lot better match than I thought it was. And I think this 6-man at Wrestle Kingdom is going to be a good way to limit his bumps. But I do think, this is another one. Do they let him have a win? Or I think this is since it being his last New Japan match, he puts over Naito, Bushi, and Sonata. Bushi and Sonata, who he helped train.
Yeah, you're right. He probably is going to. Does he take the fall? Maybe not, but maybe have his team lose. Maybe has one of those guys, Sonata or Bushi, pin him for the win.
If you would get more out of Sonata in the main eventer and have that on it, like that on his is not the notch on his belt, right? Like, than Bushi, because Bushi is the junior heavyweight of the 2. But then again, Muto, I don't know. I think he's going to do the job, though. I think that team will lose.
Yeah.
So, and I think the only other match I didn't mention was the junior tag titles, which I do think Leo Rush and Yo will win the titles, because they won the junior tag league, and the junior tag titles flip-flop so often. Yeah.
That's okay. So that would support your statement earlier, Ryan, that you said that the belts normally change hands multiple times here on the show. We both thought the women's title would stay the same, but yeah, I could see everything else happening. I hope Will Ospreay wins. I just think and then put in place match 3 down the road, and the build for that would just be incredible. But that
would be fantastic. I would not mind that at all. So
no, I think that would be. I think that's what you go for. Maybe you have that at WrestleKingdon. I don't know.
Another factor that's not mentioned is
excuse me, Forbidden Door. Sorry.
Could Kota Ibushi come into factor? I mean, he has had his bad time with New Japan over these last few years. He's been injured, but he's Omega's closest friend. So could he show up in some role? I don't know either. So that's another fantasy booking part of my head.
Sure it is. Could he show up because Will Ospreay has the United Empire at his his match? So that'd be a good thing. The world be shaken if Kenny Omega, I think, and Kota Ibushi got back together. I want to take time out here since it's the new year. Thank you very much to the Ryan Howard. That's right. We have the Ryan Howard at the Ryan Howard on Twitter. Ryan, both CZ and I want to thank you for coming on here, talking about WrestleKingdom, enlightening us a little bit, giving us a little background. I hope the fans out there enjoyed it as much as I did. Want to apologize once again for the Wizard CZ's audio issues. He was with me in my ear, per se, the producer in my ear, getting the questions asked that he wanted asked as well. So it's a tag team effort here at Card Subject to Change. And I once again want to thank the Ryan Howard for joining us. And I know, CZ, you do have an announcement to read, do you not?
Yeah, well, Nick, if you can hear me all right here, I apologize for my previous audio issues, but I've also been dealing with something else that came across my email while we were recording here. Nick, from the desk of Bud Dwight, President and CEO of Operations of For Frequency Sake Network, I've got a press release to read for you.
Did I drop an F-bomb?
No, this is a little bit different than that. If you dropped an F-bomb, it wasn't caught by our higher ups, but I've been on the phone dealing with this as well as kind of being in your ear. We're going to have a big change starting next week. And I'm going to read this directly from, like I said, Bud Dwight, President and CEO of Operations of For Frequency Sake Network. For immediate release, For Frequency Sake Network would like to announce the appointment of Chris Angle, who will be joining as the third man effective next week. That would be January 8th or 9th, whenever we record our next show. Chris Angle will be joining Card Subject to Change from SCW Pro. He is the head referee for over 15 years, making them an industry authority in making him an industry authority from professional wrestling. To help us achieve our goal of gaining new listeners, growing the podcast, and broadening the listenership of Card Subject to Change, Chris Angle will be bringing the following experience in professional wrestling to Card Subject to Change podcast. Working in several locker rooms with big-name professional wrestlers. He has worked with some of the biggest names in professional wrestling, current and past. And direct quote from Mr. Angle, "I am looking forward to co-hosting Card Subject to Change along with the Wizard CZ and the Honorable Nick Bull. A new era of Card Subject to Change will begin in 2023. Bud Dwight, President and CEO of Operations of For Frequency Sake Network, added, "I see the addition of Chris Angle will be a great thing for Card Subject to Change. He brings many years of experience and knowledge to the table alongside CZ and Nick Bull." Nick, big announcement on our end. What do you think of that? We're getting a third man.
Wow. We must be important if we're getting a third man. Looking forward to meeting. What would you say his name was? Chris Angle?
Chris Angle.
Looking forward to meeting him, and I don't know. I thought this was a two-man thing. Maybe you and I don't work well with others. I don't know.
We'll find out. He joins us next week. I've been told in my conversation with Bud Dwight that next week we'll be changing what we were planning on doing. Not even going to announce what we were planning. Instead, we are introducing Mr. Angle into the show. It'll be very similar to an interview like we've had in the past with names like Manders, JT Energy, Merrick Brave, etc., and so on. You can
Ryan
catch those
Howard.
in our archives. Ryan
And
Howard,
Ryan
yes. Thank you once again for joining us, Ryan. We appreciate you being here. And Nick, I appreciate you carrying the show while I was dealing with this and other issues on my end.
Not a problem. When you got great guests, it makes it easy.
I completely agree. I don't know what more to say other than wow, we're getting. I feel kind of like we are maybe Hall and Nash. I don't know if Chris Angle. I do know him. I have known him for a number of years through my ring announcing and wrestling connections there. I don't know if he is the Hulk Hogan to our Hall and Nash, but we will see. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good time. I think I see good things, and anytime we can get someone to banter with us about wrestling, you and I say it all the time. We could talk wrestling for days.
Right.
I'm excited.
So big episode next week as we add another to the podcast. We will probably recap WrestleKingdon, the big moments that happened there, and we'll also be recapping SCW Pro's Prestige Rumble, January 7th on Saturday night. It will be the last show in at the Walcott Coliseum as the building was sold and changed ownership. So get out there, Prestige Rumble, to have a chance to support your local wrestling and to see a pretty good show.
And Nick, I know you'll be there. I will be in Huntsville, Alabama at the time of the show, so I will not be attending the Prestige Rumble, sad to say. But if you guys want to meet and greet with the Honorable One, he will be in the audience at SCW Pro's final Walcott Coliseum show. That's gonna put a wrap on this episode, I think, my friend. I don't know what more to say. We've got a new member. If you want to follow along and play ahead of time, we're going to be reviewing the Royal Rumble of 2002 in just a couple of weeks. 2003. Yes, 2003. My fault. 20-year anniversary of that Royal Rumble. I was a year off. I'm still a year behind.
That's okay. You're still writing 2021 on your checks.
You're right. I am.
I do want to thank Ryan Howard for coming on the show and talking WrestleKingdon with us. We'll definitely have Ryan back on the show in the future. Fun talk to everybody. Enjoy wrestling. Be safe. Happy New Year. Easy. That's all I got. I'm making the hot tag meeting.
Hey, yeah, and if you want to follow us on social media, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. We want to interact with you guys as listeners. We're broadcasting for the first time today on Twitch instead of on YouTube. We are also on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitch now, you can find us at CSTC Pod. Twitter is at CSTC Podcast, same as Instagram. Nick Bull is at NickBull55. I am at the Wizard CZ. You can find us on Facebook at Cards Subject to Change Podcast. That's going to do it for today. Thanks for tuning in. I enjoyed the talk about WrestleKingdon. We'll, like Nick said, we'll give a little recap of what happened next week. And next week we welcome Chris Angle, the 15-year head referee of SCW Pro, onto the team of Cards Subject to Change. We'll see you then.